All right, folks, it's time for another Soapbox Lunchbox unpopular sports opinion. This is actually going to be a series because I have so much to say about this. It could take forever, but I think it's really interesting. And this is going to be about Kobe Bryant. I probably will have, like I said, at least two, probably three, maybe even four videos about Kobe Bryant because there's so much to say. But this is going to be part one of this series, which is why, or I should say how, Kobe Bryant became the first manufactured sports superstar. This is actually true, and a lot of people don't realize this. Although, if you know anything about NBA basketball and its history, there's a lot of suspicious things that have been done over the years. Everything from refs cheating, to gambling on games, to throwing games, to questionable things with lottery picks and draft picks. It's highly suspicious, the NBA, since its inception. But in the case of Kobe Bryant, there's no question that there was direct collusion between shoe companies, organizations, and the NBA as a whole in order to get Bryant certain places and essentially make sure he was successful. Let's put it that way. So Kobe Bryant, the first ever manufactured superstar. And for that, it's extremely important because what this did is it taught really everyone behind the scenes that this could be done and could be done successfully if handled properly. But in order to get to this story and really understand how it happened and how it works, we have to talk about someone else who's not Kobe Bryant. Someone by the name of Sonny Vaccaro. Okay? If you know your basketball history or pop culture history, you may have heard that name before, or you may not have. But this video, part one, Kobe Bryant, the manufactured superstar, is actually about Vaccaro. So let's start from the beginning. Vaccaro is a guy of, let's say, suspicious backgrounds. Many people have connected him to sports gambling. There's rumor that he may have been a mobster connected to the mafia in some ways. Vaccaro himself has never affirmed or denied any of these accusations, so it's all speculative. But needless to say, at a point in his career, Vaccaro started getting very well connected to the college basketball sports community. Particularly what he used to do is he would attend regularly and I think financially support some of these very high-end basketball camps, at the highest level, where they're bringing these top-tier NCAA players. Usually it was a coach, right, from like a university, a big-name coach. They would run these clinics and they would make money off of them. Somehow Vaccaro got involved in all this. And somehow through that, he got connected to a shoe company. That shoe company was Nike. At that time, Nike was a relatively young company, kind of an upstart. Their primary base was running shoes. That's mostly what they manufactured. But they were looking to extend that to other areas of sports. Somehow Vaccaro got connected with them, and he said, well, what about basketball shoes? The folks at Nike were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. We would love to get involved in the basketball shoe community. There's just a huge problem, and that's Converse. Everyone knows Converse controls that industry. They've run it for decades, which is true. Prior to the 1980s, pretty much if you played basketball, you wore Converses. And this goes all the way back to like the 50s and the Converse All-Star, up into the 80s when you had guys like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird wearing the Fast Break, which was sort of like a modern variation on the All-Star shoe. So they're like, and all the guys in the NBA already have contracts with Converse. So, how's that going to work? So Vaccaro says, well, I have an idea. He says, the thing about shoes and equipment, selling equipment, is kids want to buy the shoes that their favorite players play. And they're like, yeah, of course. We all know that. That's the whole idea of sponsorship. He's like, right. Well, the most popular form of basketball in America is not the NBA, it's college basketball. We need to get the college basketball players to wear our shoes. And they're like, okay, yeah, obviously we know that. NCAA basketball is extremely popular, but you know the regulations. You can't pay a college kid to wear your shoes. Again, this is years ago. Now they've changed the ruling on that. Probably know about that. But obviously back then, college players could not accept any type of funding or sponsorship. Otherwise, they'd be ineligible to play. So, that can't work. And Vaccaro's like, I know. Here's my idea. He said, I'm connected to a lot of these top-tier programs. I know the coaching staff. I know the people in charge. I propose this. We give them our shoes for free. Now, this seems like an obvious idea now, the way we know about advertisement, but in the early 80s, this was a revolutionary concept. So like, wait, what? He's like, listen to me. We're going to go to these top tier programs and we're going to tell them, hey, if you'll guarantee that your team will wear our Nike shoes on the court, we will supply your school with free shoes. They're like, interesting. And he's like, and I've got even further. We can't pay the players, but we can make donations to the school and even to the coaches. Signing bonuses, essentially. So we offer the coaches like, hey, and if you get your team to wear these, we'll actually pay you. So again, he's saying we will pay you essentially to wear our shoes the same way you would do in a normal sponsorship, but this is getting a school to do this. And they're like, see what you can do. So Vaccaro uses his contacts with the college sports community, reaches out to these top tier programs, and they're like, wait, what? You're going to give us all this equipment for free? You're going to give us our shoes and you're going to give us money? Done deal. So all these college basketball programs start wearing Nikes. And all of a sudden, Nike starts to get moving up in popularity and starts to have a shoe that's popularized in the world of basketball. So Nike's really happy about this. They're loving what Vaccaro's done. And they're like, well, this is great, but the only problem is to really, really feel like we're the top tier basketball shoe, we got to get it in the top tier league. We got to get it in the NBA somehow. How are we going to do that? Vaccaro comes back again. I have an idea. We can't get the top NBA players because they are already under contract with Converse. What we do is we find the best college basketball player who's about to go pro, and we sign him as soon as he declares he's going pro. They're like, well, wait a second. That's a huge gamble. That's a huge risk. What if he doesn't work out? What if it ends up being a huge flop? And Vaccaro said, yes, that's the risk. That's why we got to do our research. We got to pick the right guy. We got to pick the right guy who's going to be worth it. The guy who's pretty much a sure win that he's going to be good and he's going to be likable and he's going to be a good spokesperson, that kind of stuff. So he's like, let me use my contacts and figure this out. But there's another thing too. We don't have enough money set aside to get several different young athletes signed. So I propose we take all of that and offer it to the best option. And they're like, whoa, wait a second. You want us to spend the entire budget of sponsorship on one guy? He's like, again, it's a gamble. Remember Vaccaro's background? Put all the chips on the table, but I think this is our best shot. We want to find the best guy and want to give him the best deal, and that's how we're going to get our foot in the door with the NBA. As it turns out, the player that he selects is Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan ends up signing the Nike Jordan contract through Vaccaro. Now, Vaccaro's actually been pretty honest about this, and he says, I've gotten things wrong tons of times. But he said, the one thing I've learned over the years in my background is you can say anything you want, and people tend to forget everything you got wrong. What they remember is when you got it right. And he said, in the case of Jordan, I got it right, and I got it really right. But he said Jordan was a wild card for a lot of reasons. It wasn't just the talent, but like he said, Jordan was very marketable. And he saw that early in Jordan. And what he liked about Jordan is the fact that he was very disciplined and extremely competitive. So he felt that Jordan, even if he was met with obstacles, because of his competitiveness and his drive, would still find a way to be successful. But there were also some limitations with Jordan. He said, Jordan obviously came in the league and was highly successful, way more successful than we ever anticipated. But his actual career didn't really flourish for several years into the process. And he believed that was because Jordan was picked up by what was at that time a small market team, the Chicago Bulls, who were a floundering organization, and they didn't really have a good support system. But eventually, obviously, the organization around Jordan built up a team, found success, and was able to make him Jordan and the Jordan shoe line. By the way, Vaccaro also proposed the idea of having not just shoes, but an entire clothing line. So that's pretty important as well. Now, what does that have to do with Kobe Bryant? Fast forward several years, and Vaccaro has a falling out with Nike. There's different reasons people think this happened. A lot of people think it was Vaccaro got a little too confident, a little too chatty. He was basically taking credit for all of Nike's success. The big bosses didn't like that, and there was just friction there, so Vaccaro left. Well, as it turns out, as soon as Vaccaro was free of Nike, there was another shoe company, one that came out of Germany, i.e. Adidas, who has a huge success rate with the soccer world in Europe, but was looking to try to get a foothold in America, and specifically was targeting basketball because they had seen how successful that could be and how much money there was to be made in basketball shoes. So they signed on Sonny Vaccaro with one intent: do for us what you did for Nike. That's when the Kobe Bryant story comes in, and that will be part 2 of this little series, so stay tuned.